So, destroyers versus CVs. This is a big topic. A lot of people I know struggle playing destroyers versus CVs and see destroyers as one of the most impacted classes by a CV game. And I would agree. I would agree with that. There is a massive difference in what you can do in a CV game as a destroyer player versus when there's no CV. And your ship really relies on stealth, so if a CV just constantly comes after you, I can definitely get and feel that frustration. It's pretty annoying, honestly. So this is one of the closest matches I've ever played in World of Warships, by the way. Just as a background to the topic of destroyers versus CVs and what you should be doing and how you should be thinking about playing these scenarios. This game goes right down to the wire. And if you watched my video on what I love about this game, I believe that was an Alsace game, you'll know that I love games that go right down to the wire, they're very close, and decisions you make actually impact the game. That's what I love. So this was a really fun one for me, outside of the CV annoyance, because nobody likes being focused by a CV player. To play a DD in a CV game, you need to be extremely aware of your surroundings. You need to know exactly what's threatening you from where. So you need to know approximately where the enemy destroyers are or are going to be and how you can stay safe from them. You need to know where your AA bubbles are. So right now I'm making use of an AA bubble here in our Minotaur. So that's a tip number one, is to make sure you have a good AA bubble nearby you. So by that I mean you want to stay within 8 kilometers of a friendly AA ship. Because their range is going to be around 6 kilometers, so you're around 2 kilometers outside their AA range. So if you see a CV coming to strike you or come near you, you can just get into their AA range, and then it's 2 ships AA versus a CV, and that helps to thin out the planes. That's going to be the biggest one. You don't really want to stray far from your teammates. And I talked about that in my CV video. I think that's pretty bad game design that doesn't allow flanking or any movement by yourself, and that's why you find people just clumping up in CV games. That's why they get kind of boring. But it's what you have to do. As a destroyer player, going into the B cap like this would be suicide unless there's a Minotaur full YOLOing it with you. So we end up getting the cap. Something I do like to do is I like to turn my AA on to shoot down fighter planes, because they're constantly spotting your teammates for free, and we all know how powerful spotting is in this game. So if you can help your team stay dark, that's a really big benefit, and fighter planes die very quickly. Another big thing to do is to leave your AA off, or to turn your AA off, I should say. There's a button, I think by default it's P on your keyboard. It turns your AA off completely, and it allows you to not start shooting at planes and get you lit by those planes. I see this a lot where destroyers leave their AA on and they get lit at 6 kilometers, and then the CV gets a perfect strike on them, when their air detection is somewhere around 3 kilometers, which makes it incredibly difficult for the CV to get a good drop on you unless you're already spotted, or they know exactly where you are. So having your AA off, like I have right now, is a huge help to staying stealthy. That's the biggest thing you can do, is know when to turn your AA on and when to turn your AA off. The other problem with this is I see people in their DDs leave their AA off far too often. You can easily help your teammates survive engagements with CVs if you just turn your AA on and help them when they're in range, and you know you're safe. Obviously you don't want to do that when you're in front of the whole enemy team, but for example, if my battleship friend here had been dropped by those torpedo planes, I would have turned my AA on immediately, and maybe even defensive fired for him, just to help him live in this position a lot longer, because he's in a very powerful position right now, and it makes sense that the CV would want to get rid of him. It's this whole mind game of trying not to get lit and have the CV go after you constantly, but also helping your teammates out. Now, Halland is a great example of this because it has incredible AA. Still not enough to really deal with a CV if a CV wants to kill you, let's be honest. They'd have to be really, really bad and just run into flat clouds, like on purpose. They'd have to see a flat cloud and drive into it on purpose in order for Halland AA to actually be able to counter a CV completely. So, but you're good enough that a CV generally doesn't want to focus you. This one on the enemy team seemed to like me a lot, so that's why we get so many playing kills in this one. That happens a lot for me. Yeah. It's annoying, but that's why I play a destroyer like Halland, not something like a Gearing or a Shimakaze or something like that. In these scenarios, you would likely just want to smoke up if you were one of those destroyers. Here, I don't have a smoke, so I have to take the fight. So you see I leave my AA off as long as possible, and then I turn it on the instant he's in my plane detect range. And then the best thing you can do is actually to slow down if he's approaching you from behind. Generally, you want to be approaching the planes in a head-on, and that gives the least amount of time possible for the enemy CV to get a drop on you, because you're both closing the distance, and that makes it really difficult. In that initial engagement, they can always circle around and kill you, but in that initial engagement, that's the biggest thing. But you see, I'm always having my AA off. That's just in its default setting. The only time I turn my AA on is to protect myself or to help protect my friends. And that's kind of the thing, is you have the ability to help your friends with your AA. And you're going to see me do that to help our Yamato down here. He's pushing with us, which is awesome, and I want to encourage that. So he's helping us drive out this Yamato, drive out the Kurfürst, all that stuff, get this cap, which is great. Great play by our Yamato, actually. And he actually comes up huge clutch later on in this game, too, so keep an eye out for that. But we want to help support him. As a destroyer player, you're wanting to spot and torp and support your teammates as much as you can to gain ground. So that also includes AA. So you can help your team out a lot by just making sure you turn your AA on to help them when they get struck. It's very, very simple. Now, you'll see I have not ventured away from my friends in this game at all, but I'm still being useful to my team. Right? If I were to, say, be up at C cap, and I wanted to flank the enemy team as they push down to B, so let's say I was on the B line or the C line in maybe 5 or 6, B5 or 6, something like that, torping them as they try and push down into B, well, I would be leaving myself way open to a carrier strike. Like, way too far open. That would be a good position in a non-carrier game. That would be a horrible position in a CV game, because you have nobody to help you with the CV. Now, there's an argument to be made that a Halland could deal with it, maybe, but not really. Not realistically, if the CV player knows anything about what they're doing. But, so we just chill here with our Halland friend and with our Yamato, because we want to keep him alive. The biggest thing about playing in a CV game is to play safe, really. We all know that CVs want to kill destroyers because for whatever reason they think that that's going to help them win the game the most, and it does some of the time, but mainly it comes down to teammates who wins the game or not. But if you can stay alive as a destroyer till late game, you are incredibly powerful. When nobody else can outspot you and you can just torp and do whatever you want to, the gameplay loop changes entirely. You're no longer scared or weighing risks of, oh, maybe the enemy DDs will spot me here and we'll get into a fight and they'll just kill me. You have complete control over the battle, and it's such an awesome feeling. Now here, I think I thought for a second he was going after me to spot me, potentially, but then I realized, oh no, he's going after our Yamato friend. And, well, that could be huge damage into our Yamato, so that's why I pop my defensive fire and turn my AA on. Because we want to help our Yamato stay alive as much as we possibly can. So CV gets an okay drop on our Yamato, not the greatest, and we managed to shoot down quite a few planes. And you'll notice what I just did there. I just tapped P a couple times. And if you turn your AA off during your defensive fire active time, it actually resets turns off your defensive fire and resets the cooldown so you can get your defensive fire up faster. Just a little tip that I don't think most people know. This is actually something I wish we could do with all consumables. I think it would be very interesting to be able to turn off your radar whenever you feel like it's no longer necessary, or your hydroacoustic search. I would love to see the ability to control more parts of your ship. Give the player more control over what they're doing and more decisions to make. I would love to see that, because those little things can help impact the game and win a game. Same with damage control, actually. I would love to be able to flip my damage control to instantly go on cooldown in my battleships, for example, right? So like Montana has a 20-second active timer for the damage control, and you would think, oh, well, that's good. You're immune to fires, but in fact, you actually want that instant action of fixing all the fires on your ship. That's the powerful part, and you would want that to come back up. Here I was shooting so that Midway gets to see me the whole time and line up a really good drop on me. So we just go skinny to his drop, and, you know, we take 2 rockets and some damage, but again, I popped defensive fire. I should have left defensive fire on here. I'm not sure why. I'm just so used to clicking it on and off, but now I'm actually out of defensive fires. So we gotta survive until the end without that. But fortunately, he's got dive bombers. I've been trying to use my defensive fires and trying to kill as many rocket planes as I can. That's the most important one to deal with from a Midway. His dive bombers are pretty powerful too, so you just want to go broadside to it, essentially. And that's going to be your best bet for dealing with those planes. You'll see he's dropping fighter consumables on us. That's largely why we get a ton of plane kills, by the way. If you're thinking, wow, this ship's overpowered, it gets so many plane kills, well, it's because we're mainly killing his fighter squadrons, not the actual attack planes. And then because we were able to go dark and the Thunder had just shot, I was okay with making this full turnout. It's important to know reload times of enemy ships as well, so you can make decisions like, can I turn out or not? Now we get an amazing strike on a Midway there, but unfortunately Wargaming has designed this game to where CVs are one of the tankiest classes in the game, so we're actually not able to kill him here, even though he's on 2,000 HP. I think I'm the only one who's actually ended up getting shots in him, which is really unfortunate. We get so many shatters on his deck. I don't understand why the ship that camps the back needs to have the best armor as well. That's a really odd game design. Now here, again, we want to be broadside to dive bombers, so I'm just reversing and full turning. I'm just hoping that he doesn't slap me for all of my health here. And we got lucky. He only hits us with 1. He lined up his drop from a bad angle, so that's okay. I'm hoping my Yamato friend might be able to get a shot on him, but we actually don't. In hindsight, I probably should have gone after that Midway and made sure he died earlier to make sure he's not harassing our team, but I mean, you make decisions in the game and you got to live with them, right? So again, AA off. We know he's coming after me, but AA off. And this time I actually slow down because he's approaching me from behind. I believe I slow down. Yeah, there we go. You want to slow down because if you're moving away from him, he spots you at 3 kilometers or whatever it is. And if you're moving away from him, you're giving him more time to line up his drop. So if you slow down, it gives him less time to line up his drop. So stopping is actually the best thing you could do in that kind of situation. So little things like that just help you to live longer and be less likely for the CV to get an amazing drop on you. And you'll notice that he hasn't actually hit me that hard yet, because we've been playing intelligently, trying to dodge. We haven't really been dodging, but we've been mitigating as much damage as we possibly can in this ship. Now he's coming back with dive bombers, so again, we just want to show broadside to him. It's all up to RNG whether he slaps us really hard or not, basically. Now we got a shipment to deal with. This is really intense in here. I'm in here to stall the cap because you'll notice we are still barely ahead on points. So I'm trying to stall out this cap as much as we possibly can. Because this game has gotten really, really, really close. And I love these games, you know. Shimakaze takes a gunfight with us. I actually end up grounding, which could have cost me here, but it actually ends up working out okay, and we actually end up killing the Shima, which is a huge bonus for our team. So it gives us a little bit of wiggle room in terms of our points. But the Des Moines shows up. Fortunately, got slowed down by the Shima Torps. I probably would have been fine anyway, because these islands would have blocked a lot of his shots, and he would have had to go really wide to shoot over him. But if he goes wide to shoot over them, he doesn't keep up with me to keep me proxy lit, all those things. So I probably would have been fine anyway, but a nice little bonus there from the enemy Shimakaze. So now we're just going to play Ring Around the Rosie with this Des Moines, trying to stay alive. The important thing in a CV game with a destroyer is to be with your team. You'll notice I'm not with my team now, but that's because it's near the end of the game. I hardly have a team left, let's be honest. But you see how playing near your team means the CV isn't getting those constant drops on you. He'll drop you every once in a while, and he'll get one run in on you. But if you're next to your teammates, you actually are able to deal with the squad before it gets a second drop off. And that's the important thing. I've talked about this with battleships. You want to be in a situation where the CV only gets his one guaranteed drop on you. That's the biggest thing. You need to prevent the multiple drops from the enemy CV. Now, let's be honest, the FDR is a different story, but that's a little bit worse against destroyers than a Midway is, for example. But it is possible to play destroyers in a CV game and do well. I don't think it's as easy. I don't think it's nearly as fun. It's not a very balanced experience when there's literally nothing I can do except, okay, I guess we're going to hope that he misses his drop now or hide with my teammates. It feels really weird to have that kind of mechanic in a multiplayer video game when the player's not given any control over the engagement at all. When every other engagement in this game, both players have control. It's really weird, but you notice how we have our AA off, and the enemy planes are in our AA range, and we did not get spotted. It's a big deal, because we're trying to play mind games with this Des Moines here. When is the Des Moines going to stop and think, oh, I'm going to catch this Halland as he comes around the corner? Right? That's what we're wondering right now. We're trying to play mind games here. Now, I'm trying to get our Yamato to go into the gap to hold my backside, essentially, to hold the back door on the Des Moines, so then I can just stay here on the front side and maybe even reverse towards our Yamato. That's kind of what I'm thinking at this point, because I think at this point our Yamato is able to spot a lot through that gap, so now I know that the Des Moines is probably waited for me on the other side for me to come around. So, nice little, fun little mind games here, trying to figure things out. But DDs are definitely workable in CV games. They're by no means fun. I don't think anybody has fun in a CV game. Let's be honest here. There's 2 players that get to grief 22 other players. So nobody gets to have fun, but you can manage it. It's manageable. And the important thing to remember is to turn your AA off. That makes life 10 times easier than if you leave your AA on. And then sticking with your teammates, of course, is the other big one. Now, obviously Halland doesn't have a smoke, and I mentioned that earlier. I would just smoke up in certain cases. And the cases where I would smoke up is when I'm caught out alone. If the enemy CV is willing to strike you and then run into your full team's blob of AA that you're hopefully staying next to, if he's willing to do that, I wouldn't smoke up for that. You know, he might get his drop off or whatever, but he won't get a second drop off on you. That's not really worth the smoke, I don't think. But it's mainly when you're caught out and you know there's going to be multiple drops coming by the enemy CV and potentially some big damage coming from the enemy players because you get spotted by the CV. That's when you would want to smoke up. So that's kind of how I play destroyers. Now onto this game, just to quickly end it here. 20 seconds left on the clock. We're down by, like 40 points or so. And a single kill could flip this game around. This is one of the closest games I've played in a long time. Probably since the Kings of the Sea game, or maybe one of the Verizon games that I killed someone right at the end. But Yamato dies, our Yamato somehow doesn't die giving broadside to their Yamato, and we win the game. Absolutely crazy. I don't know how that happened, but I was laughing away. That was just such a funny, crazy end to that game. So that's how I would play Destroyer in a CV game. That's a pretty good example. If you want to, you can come check out my stream. I'll be playing Destroyers more often because battleships are getting worse and worse. So I'm trying to play a class where my decisions matter more. So I'll be playing DDs more, so you can ask some questions there or just see how I play when I get into CV games there. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day.